Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Insightful Accountant webinar, How to Expedite the 1040 Review Process. Make a fundamental breakthrough for your firm by removing the reviewer bottleneck. Presented by Janelle Sikora and Dan Bash, sponsored by TaxExact. Insightful
Thanks.
Accountant, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
Insightful Accountant is an online news and information source written for small business advisors interested in the latest news and offerings in accounting technology. My name is Emily Hedrick, and I'm the Media Director for IA. If you have any questions during the session, please enter them in the Q&A box and we'll try to address them. Everyone that has registered will receive a follow-up email with the recording and presentation. I'll introduce today's speakers, Janelle Sikora and Dan Bash. Janelle is the Chief Marketing Officer for TaxExact, the tax solution that revolutionizes the 1040 review process. She is an experienced B2B sales.
Dan, did we lose Emily?
It sounded like the end of it.
All right. I think I'm going to run with it, Emily. Emily, are you there? Okay. Dan, do you think we should get started?
Yeah, let's jump on in.
All right, let's do it. So you guys probably want to hear Dan and I talk about something other than the weather, I'm guessing, since that's kind of how this started. So we are going to be talking about how to expedite the 1040 review process. But before we get started, Emily had a chance to introduce me. Dan, would you mind just introducing yourself really quick so they know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the CFO of TaxExact, also a CPA, CVA, and MBA. So I'm excited to be presenting today to you guys.
Thank you very much. All right, so we are all coming out of the most grueling tax season ever. And so let's just start this off lightly with a little humor. I thought you guys might like this. I thought this was cute. I got a chuckle out of it. And so I figured most of y'all would as well. So I like to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. Before we get started, we're going to spend about the first 25 minutes or so of the 50 minutes talking a little bit about exactly what the topic is, right? How to expedite that 1040 review process. Then we're going to spend about 10 minutes showing you a software demo of TaxExact. And then we're going to come back and we're going to spend the last 10 minutes or so with sort of what we call a bonus section. And that is, I'm sure that you guys all feel that you are controlled by tax season. And we're going to show you some ways that you can actually architect your schedule and your day-to-day regular schedule to control tax season instead of letting it control you. Dan's done a really good job of that. And so I think we have some really valuable content to share with you there. So stick with us for that whole 50 minutes, okay? And so with that, we will get started. And I would love to know in the chat why you guys are here today. We think it's one of the following 5 reasons, but you tell us. Are you here to increase review efficiency for your process and do high quality reviews in less time? Is it maybe you've got a bottleneck in your firm and you want to figure out how to remove that bottleneck? Maybe you're trying to figure out if there really is a way to control tax season versus allowing it to control you. It is possible. You'll see that by the end of this. Maybe you're here just to be completely confident that every return you deliver is right and that you've been able to have the time to tell the story within the return and identify those planning opportunities. Or maybe you're trying to just figure out a strategy to reclaim time that you can spend on other things in your firm, whether it's business development or marketing or recruiting or culture. Maybe it's a little bit of all of that. So we're curious. And if you would share that in the chat, that would be awesome. And then Dan, what are you seeing? Because I can't see the chat right now.
I don't see anything yet. It looks like people are still typing.
Awesome.
It looks like we have a few coming in. So someone said all of the above.
Awesome.
Another person said both A and D.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Confidence in making sure that it's right. Yeah. No one wants tax notices. I totally get that. Efficiency is big, right?
We got another all of the above.
Okay. So a little secret, there is no right answer. All of these are correct. And hopefully you'll get out of it answers to all of these questions today. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're focusing our conversation completely on the review for a portion of the 1040 workflow. I'm going to skip right to C here because I like to call it the messy middle, right? We've got the preparation, which has been very largely automated over the last several years. Not everyone has that automated, but the technology is there. And then you've got the review portion, which is that messy middle because it takes a lot of time. And then you've got that delivery portion, right? So ultimately, why we're focused completely on just the review portion encapsulated as a process today is that it just does take too much time. I have never talked to a partner in all of my time working with hundreds of firms that didn't say we spend too much time on a review. Many firms express that they have a bottleneck at the review level. Not all firms. I mean, there are sole practitioners out there that doesn't even apply to, but in most cases, it is a bottleneck because most firms do have more preparers than they have reviewers, right? And then, you know, a big thing is that all of you guys right now in 2021 and moving forward, you have to be proactive, trusted advisors. And an example on that is there's another firm that I work with who was telling me that they had just a stellar year last year, and they had such an uptick in businesses coming to them that the managing partner, started asking these new clients, why are you leaving your CPA? And she said, without fail, 100% of the time, the answer was, we needed someone to be proactive. So we have to be able to help enable accountants be those proactive, trusted advisors. The other thing that's interesting is that really every firm wants to hire reviewers right now, this time of year. It's just a recurring theme. Everyone we talk to, do you know anyone? We're really looking for tax seniors. We're looking for managers. But frankly, you can actually create them faster than you can find them. We're going to show you that. So the first polling question, Emily, I'm going to have you put up there. We only have 2 polling questions today, by the way, but we want to know who does the 1040 reviews in your firm? And I realize every firm is different. So is it that the partner reviews after the preparer finishes the preparation and the partner's doing that detailed review? Is it where a manager reviews first and then sends it up to a partner for final sign off? Maybe the preparer is responsible for checking their own work. There are firms that do that. Or there are some firms out there too that have sort of a homegrown, if you will, checklist or Excel spreadsheet that they use to review it, you know, kind of spot check it. So we're curious which one of those applies to you. Okay. Awesome. Okay, then you're going to like what you see. So this is really interesting. So 43% say the partner reviews after preparer finishes the preparation. So that tells me that the partner's doing a pretty detailed tick and tie and recalculating and doing a pretty detailed review. And then it's tied for manager reviews first and then sends to the partner for final sign off. And then preparer is responsible for checking his or her own work. And I would guess in maybe a couple of those cases, that's a sole practitioner because you want to check your own work, obviously. Okay, so let's keep moving here. There we go. So today's goal, we're going to show you how to make a strategic leap forward. And it's going to involve a very simple mindset shift and then a few process enhancements that don't require a lot of time, training, or change in your firm. In my experience, this is the best time of year to try something a little different, to tweak things, because if you begin over the summer making a few fine-tuning changes, you put it into play for extension season, then it's second nature for you to use for next tax season. So this is a really good time to be thinking about doing things a little differently. I like to know, are you hiring reviewers? Because I think that every firm, just about every firm right now is looking for trying to find somebody. And we know how tough this market is to come to work for them as a senior or a manager or reviewer. So if you're trying to find and hire, you know, experienced tax accountants or reviewers, you're in the right place. Okay. All right, last polling question. So for your 1040 prep, there's really only 3 ways to do it. And I'm just curious, are you hand keying everything into your tax software, whatever that tax software may be, from your client documents that maybe they uploaded to a portal or gave to you in a shoebox? Are you scanning and auto-populating the return, or are you using outsource, which is becoming more and more prevalent in the even small to mid market. So I'm curious how you guys in this group do your tax prep. Oops. All right. So most people are hand keying in, and then we've got a couple that do the scan and auto populate. So that's what I meant by technology earlier when I was talking about that's the technology available at the prep level to kind of automate that process. So great. All right, so let's it does start with preparation, right? That's the beginning part, but let's talk about that messy middle here in a minute. But before we start talking about that, we believe that in order to address the messy middle, if you will, the review, we believe that you really need to reframe how we train and develop preparers. And that's not easy, but let's talk about, we think there are some ways that will revolutionize that. Let's talk about who preparers are. So in most firms, we're looking at either interns. Sometimes there's some seasonal preparers. Obviously, most firms bring in a few extra during tax season. Many times these are college grads, very smart people who've graduated with accounting degrees or whatever, new accountants getting ready to sit for their CPA. Or sometimes they're just people who've been doing tax returns for 35 years that just enjoy preparing tax returns. That's who these people are. These are the preparers. They all have the ability to be reviewers. The key is for preparers, we believe that you have to establish a very clear vision for every single person in your firm and their ultimate role within the firm. And why is that? Because if you think about where this industry is going, there is this, we've heard about it for years now, the shift from compliance to advisory, right? We're truly in the middle of that. And in order to be a firm of advisory services and attracting the services that you want, everyone has to contribute. And the best way for that to happen is for you to have that long-term vision for people inside the firm. So if you establish a clear vision for every single person and what their ultimate role will be, essentially, it's very unlikely that you're hiring people, a college grad as an example, that you want to have be a preparer 10 years from now. Everyone has a career trajectory. And what we want to do is help you accelerate the development of those preparers so that they can become reviewers, making more money for your firm, and advisors who are bringing in business that is higher value business. The other key is just to make that initial preparation efficient, and also at the preparation level, allow for training of the tax code so that you're not relying on seniors and managers and partners to train all of these newer accountants. You want something in place to be able to automatically train these guys. And then the other key is you want to be able to tap into their critical thinking skills. So ultimately, for those of you guys who are scanning, you have made that process as efficient as you can at the preparation level right now. For people who are keying in data from source documents, eventually, maybe you'll scan, maybe you won't, but ultimately at the end of the day, you have to be able to train people to tap into their critical thinking skills so that they can understand the story inside the return versus just focusing on putting the numbers in the boxes in the tax software. So as far as reframing how we train and develop them, a lot of it is driven by the fact that tax returns are commoditized, right? It's harder and harder to make a profit on them. And so instead of preparers, really, you need reviewers. You need these critical thinkers who can identify areas inside a tax return where they can, have an advisory conversation that you can bill for or begin to collect a retainer. We already talked about the shift from compliance to advisory, but remember, you're building future trusted advisors for every single person you bring into your firm. So it's in your interest to accelerate their development and keep them engaged. It's interesting. I don't know if anyone on this call has heard of Zoom Towns before, but I saw an article, it's probably 3 weeks ago now, about Zoom Towns. And what is happening is because of the pandemic last year and everyone working from home, there's this realization out there that, gosh, you know what? I don't have to live in the city anymore. I can live wherever I want. I can live in Mayberry, for Pete's sake. And so what's happened is now people are figuring out that they can work from wherever they want. They can do whatever they want. There's another statistic that came out, and I heard this on it was a Facebook Live with Jody Paydar a few weeks ago, but one of the statistics had something to do with a very high percentage of people who will be quitting their jobs after COVID because simply they've realized, I don't have to live in this city. I can get a job wherever now. And so what that tells us is we have to really focus on keeping these folks in our firm engaged and wanting to do meaningful work, which leads to ticking and tying. So can you remember back to grade school or high school when you were doing your math homework in class and a teacher said, hey, don't forget to double check yourself before you turn it in? Well, if you were like me, you were like, no way am I doing that. It's boring. This is good enough. It's fine. I'm gonna go with it. And that's kind of like ticking and tying, right? Because when you're checking a tax return, you're double checking all the inputs and you're putting tick marks by it and you're doing some recalculations. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, right? So can you imagine these kids, your kids or grandkids who are used to using technology and they live on social media? Can you imagine them wanting to become CPAs and double checking their work? What we want to do is we really want to make accounting cool again, right? So what our message to you is here too, is that you as the final reviewer or reviewer of tax returns, you should expect an accurate product on your desk for a cursory final review, not a detailed final review, that allows you to focus on the story inside the return and the advisory opportunities within the return, not the details on it. So we're going to show you how you can get a return to review that will take you anywhere 5 to 15 minutes versus you having to go back through and tick and tie and double check all the inputs. All right. Okay. So speaking of you, let's talk about you. So you are a reviewer, you sign, you e-file, right? I'm sure you worked a few late nights and weekends this tax season, unless you're Dan. We're going to talk about that. Maybe your family forgot what you look like. You came home, maybe they didn't recognize you through that American Rescue Plan mask or stubble, and you didn't love tax season. This year, I have yet to talk to one accountant who did. But the best one, and I thought you all as accountants would get a kick out of this. I have a firm that I worked with that this really happened, and that is not a typo, that on the Tuesday before tax day, there was a contact us button on the website. And the person who contacted them simply said, I need help with taxes for 2020. Never mind the fact that they're due in less than a week. Probably need to file an extinction. I'd also like a review of 2019 taxes. I show you this because we understand what you go through. I realize that it is an incredibly stressful time for you guys. So we want to show you how we can allow you to not have to spend so much time on the review. And here's how. So step one, and this is where I said mindset shift a little bit earlier, right? So you have to shift the accountability a little bit downstream. And here's what we mean by that. Preparers can be developed into reviewers by the end of their first tax season. If you shift that work, a little bit of the review work down to them and make them accountable for the product that you get on your desk, it will take you less time to review that product when you know there are no mistakes in it. And so for you, you get time back, right? You gain that capacity. It can either be redirected to more profitable activities, or maybe it's just being able to be, enjoy your lifestyle or be home with family more. And when I say this, I am 100% positive that those of you guys are watching are saying, right, that is just not possible. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but it is. And it is possible, but how? Again, to the mindset shift. You have to set a new expectation. This is where it starts, right? And then we're going to show you exactly how that works. So returns, to set a new expectation, here's how it works. You need to set an expectation of 0 errors. If I'm a final reviewer and I'm going to review a return, I want to expect them to open it up and there are going to be no errors. That's really kind of hard to expect, right? Of a new preparer. It's not. So what the expectation is if I'm you, I would say, look, returns have to be verified and reviewed before they land on my desk. I want to see that they're independently verified. I want to know they're right. You need to be able to open a return and look only for the advisory opportunities. You need to be able to open a return, see that all of the data is correct without having to go through and tick and tie. And you need that confidence. And then you need to be able to just look at the return for what's in it, right? Is there an opportunity to talk to this person? Is there a planning opportunity? Is there something that we can, potentially schedule a consultation for? All right, so how do we do that? It's not really easier said than done. It might seem like that, but it's not. So step 2 of that, first, you set the expectation. Second, you're creating an independent expectation. And that's what we're going to show you here in a minute. So step 2 is we are creating a completely separate expectation. So you're doing your tax return in whatever tax software you use today, doesn't matter. But then completely outside of that, independently, you're recreating a very abbreviated version of it that you can compare to the tax software and instantly isolate if there is a discrepancy. So how does this get done, right? So we recommend that it's either a peer preparer, the preparer themselves, or a manager creates an independent expectation or does the independent expectation separately from the tax return. Again, it's to verify the accuracy of either balance due or refund. And what you're doing is you're only inputting the data that matters. You're not inputting all of the like extreme amount of data and the minutia that goes into tax software. You're only putting in the data that matters to compare the totals. And then you match the two up. You've got your tax software on one screen, your independent expectation on the other, and you go down the summary pages, match them up. It's approved at the preparer or peer preparer or manager level and sent on for final review. And then as the final reviewer, you would open up the tax return, not have to do any ticking in time because you know that it's already been accurately verified independently, and you're done. No more bottleneck. So you're probably wondering, well, wait, how does that all work? I'm sure you're all scratching your head. So we're gonna show you, and I'm gonna have Dan show you here in just a second. We're gonna show you how we do it. Now, I will tell you, I've worked with a lot of firms. They have a lot of different ways of doing this. I've seen some that have created their own little spreadsheets or checklists to kind of spot check. I had never seen anything like TaxExact until I met the founder a few years ago. And he had been using this for 8 years in his firm. And he used it because he couldn't have a reviewer bottleneck as he was building the advisory services business. So he created what is called TaxExact. And what it does is lets you create an independent expectation of a 1040. So you do that either at the preparer level. You can have brand new preparers create a return in your tax software. And then you could also then have them create an independent expectation in TaxExact, or it could be the reviewer who does that. Doesn't matter. It's wherever you begin to review the data in your firm. And it takes a fraction of the time to do this versus just double checking all of the inputs. So doing this then obviously completely removes the bottleneck, the review bottleneck in the firm. And you've got new reviewers and accountants that are trained naturally to learn the tax code. In situations where, for those of you that are on this webinar that scan and auto-populate returns, a lot of times in the past, I've gotten questions from firms of, well, if I do that, then how are my new people going to learn the tax code? Good point. TaxExact helps them learn the tax code because you can see how everything was calculated and understand how credits break down, et cetera, inside TaxExact. So Dan, I'm going to go ahead and let you give them a tour if you don't mind, and then we'll come back and be able to answer any questions. Before I get into that, does anyone have any questions?
I probably should have waited to share the screen.
Okay, I got it. No, good. Okay, perfect. Go ahead. It's all yours, Dan.
All right, thanks, Janelle. All right, so what we're looking at on TaxExact right now, this is our platform. What you're looking at is a return that I did complete. I did review an actual return. It took away all the personal identifiable information on here, but I wanted to show you guys what it looks like. So we at our firm, we use Lacert, so it doesn't matter if you use Lacert, Drake, ProConnect. TaxExact is an independent expectation of the tax return. Janelle had mentioned it a couple times. Yes, you are putting data into TaxExact, but it's really only the data that matters. So rather than starting at the beginning, I wanted to show you what the final product looked like, and we'll dive into a couple of the income sections. So this is what we typically see at our firm. This is a married couple, a few dependents, W-2 income. The wife has a Schedule C business. They also own some rental real estate, and they also sold some stocks. So I want to jump in, show you what our salaries and wages look like. This is our screen where we really enter in any tax form that the client receives. So it's a W-2, 1099 interest, dividend statement. I'm going to dive in a little bit further to look at the W-2. So you'll notice on here, there's only a few inputs that we need. The payer's name, taxable income, federal tax withheld, state tax withheld if you live in a state or prepare in a state that has state tax, and the retirement contributions. I'll drop on the list too, so you guys can kind of get a preview of really what's all included in the income sources on here. The brand new 1099 NECs, we got unemployment compensation. I know if you guys are anything like us, we certainly saw a whole lot of that with the changing tax codes this year. I'm gonna cancel this. Let's dive in and look at the spouse in this case owns a holistic consulting company. Really truncated version of the Schedule C, only the data points that actually matter. Looking at some gross sales, some expenses on here. I mean, really the purpose of TaxExact is that independent expectation. As you guys are talking about manually entering into Lacert or Drake, ProConnect, whichever tax prep software, you're only entering in information that's used to actually calculate the taxable income on here. I want to show you what a Schedule D looks like. So you guys have seen the 20, 30, 40 page long 1099 B statements that come to you. We're talking about really entering only the summary components on here, long-term stock sales. Give you a preview on here. I'm just going to breeze through the rest of these. So this case, they have rental property, actually at a K1 as well. But really what's going to happen if you can do it multiple ways. So from a preparer side, a preparer can go in and enter it into the tax prep software. They can turn around and enter it into TaxExact as well. And what they're going to do is they're going to verify each one of these. They're going to verify that salary and wages match what's in the tax prep software. And they're going to go down the list all the way until they get to the bottom where they understand, does the refund and balance owed match what's in the tax prep software. We have that for both IRS and for their resident state. And maybe they have a couple other states. Maybe they're in New York, but they also have a New Jersey return, Pennsylvania return. You would add it on here as well. So I'll pause just for a second to see, Janelle, is there any questions we have so far?
No questions yet, Dan. If anyone has questions, feel free to throw them out there as well if you want to see any of the inputs. Sometimes we get questions about what does a Schedule D look like? How many rental properties can I have? And so if you wanted to see any of the other inputs, just let us know.
Yeah, we'll look at a couple of those. So in this case, they own 123 Main Street, right? We have clients that own large portfolios of properties, and all you simply do is continue to add properties and build out that Schedule E. It is built out for all sorts of adjustments, tuition, student loan interest. We have your itemized deductions, medical taxes, contributions. So Janelle, I will turn it back over to you.
There's a couple other things, Dan, before you don't share your screen, I'll just point out, is along the bottom, if you can scroll all the way down. Oops. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. I just wanted to point out that some of our firms also tell us that this is a very good customer-facing tool. And the reason is that when you are doing a review with your client, maybe you're delivering a tax return to them, it's very easy for them to see along the bottom what their refund or balance due is. And as you make changes on this, you can make as many changes as you want. It will recalculate and they will, oh, there you go. So we will always be able to see that. So as an example, perhaps this person has a balance due and you find out that they can, there's an opportunity for them to dump some money into their SEP IRA. You would just simply go up to adjustments and, sorry, Dan, I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah, and click yes, and you can put in the amount. It will be auto-calculated for you, and then you can see how it impacts the net refund or balance due. So just some things that I wanted to point out that we hear from firms that really enjoy being able to share their screens in a Zoom session with their clients, because believe me, this is a lot easier to look at for a layperson than tax software. You all know that. The other thing that I wanted to mention here that is worth mentioning is that when you put all of this in here, in year one, you are only putting in the data that matters, right? You're putting it in, but then it rolls forward. So in subsequent years, so next year, 2022, you will be clicking on a roll forward button. All this will roll forward. So when you're putting this data in, you're really only putting it in the first time. And again, it is the truncated, a very abbreviated version of the tax return. And what else? Am I trying to think of anything else that we wanted to cover at a very high level, because we're barely scratching the surface on this?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about the one scenario where the preparer actually creates a TaxExact instance. We did that at our firm on several occasions where we had some newer accountants, and we had them prepare both in the tax prep software as well as the TaxExact instance. And then we had our more complicated ones where we said, hey, you know what, as the final reviewers, we want to be the one who creates the TaxExact instance. So we would actually create it. So depending on how your firm is set up, you could have it be the preparer creates the tax preparation in the software as well as TaxExact, or you could separate it and have tax preparer do it in the software and then someone else do it in TaxExact. And then it could even go to the partner for delivery, right? So there's a few different options that you have in terms of how you utilize this and how TaxExact fits best into your firm.
Excellent. And then would you click on summary one more time? Great. So, and back to just kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Dan, we also had the opportunity to talk to some very young preparers, inexperienced, right out of college, so inexperienced that they'd never seen a tax form before. I mean, as an accounting major, they don't teach these things. You all know that. In one specific example, this young man had been using tax software for 3 months and doing fine, fumbling his way through, right? But then when he was allowed to then begin also checking his work inside TaxExact, I had the opportunity to talk to him after his first day with TaxExact, and he's like, holy cow, I learned more in 1 day with TaxExact than 3 months with our tax software. And I said, why? And he said, because you can understand how things are calculated here. You can see how the credits break down. You can't necessarily do that in a tax software. So I wanted to just piggyback on what you were saying, Dan, but also going back to a couple of slides ago when I was talking about, as an owner of a firm or a managing partner, setting that expectation that, hey, I'm not going to even look at a return if I don't know that it's been independently verified. That's why I wanted Dan to click here on the summary page. What I mean by that is you as the managing partner, when you open up a return, what you should be able to do is you should open it up and you should see all these green check marks down here. That means there is no ticking your time for you to do. You know that everything that has a check mark by it is 100% correct because it's been calculated completely outside your tax software. And what you're focused on then is just if there is a box that's not checked, or if there is a note that it was in the project when it was transferred to you, that maybe there's a question about a tax treatment, or the preparer or reviewer noticed that there's an advisory opportunity or whatever the case may be. So there we go. So Dan's showing you. So once you're finished with creating the TaxExact project, you can either approve it and send it up for final review, like what Dan's doing now, or if there's a question along the way, you can reassign it. Sometimes we've seen this plug in at the first review level, where the preparer will do the TaxExact instance along with create the return in their software, send this up to the first level reviewer. The reviewer will say, well, there's these errors, and then send it back to the preparer. So there's a workflow component built into the software as well. Okay, I am going to go ahead and share my screen, Dan, so I can, let's see here. Perfect. Okay. I am going to very quickly see if there are, if you guys have any questions about this, definitely let us know. Oops. All right. So one more little piece about TaxExact, and then we're going to move on to something else. So it's actually very simple. This was designed to be very intuitive. It does not involve a lot of implementation or training time. It's very simple. Once an account is set up, you simply invite people to your team. A team equals a firm, by the way. And you do that by inviting them by putting in their email address. They get an email notification that they've been invited, and they set up their password, they're in. You can add clients onesie twosie, or you can import clients from a CSV. Not their tax data, but you can import their demographic data, just their basic demographic data. And then you start, you're creating a project and you're verifying returns. So minimal time to get started. All right. So let's talk about how tax season is not going to control you, you're going to control it. And before I ask Dan to share his experience and his wisdom here, I want to just kind of tee it up a little bit, because I think there's some really important things that for you guys to know. So it's just a general known that tax season is terrible. People work too many hours. I know there are kids that come out of college that want to go straight into private industry because they perceive that, well, I don't want to do that. I don't work 90-hour work weeks. So I really firmly, passionately believe we have got to change this paradigm in order to attract more people to this profession. And I want you to think about who you're recruiting, right? It's millennials, it's Gen Z now, actually, right? My daughter just graduated college. She's officially Gen Z. And those are the people that we are now recruiting. They don't want to work 90 hours a week. It's not a badge of honor for them anymore. They want a lifestyle. They want to actually enjoy their families or enjoy what they like to do. It's more important to them. I'm a Gen Xer. It was a total badge of honor if you were the first one to the office and the last one to leave. I get that. That's not cool anymore, though. The other thing is you really have to find the time to prioritize the direction and the future of your firm. More and more firms are figuring out how to make the whole tax workflow process so efficient that they can focus on, maybe I only want to call on veterinarians and I want advisory services for those veterinarians. Maybe I want to just have an outsourced CFO business. Maybe I want to really focus on my valuation service. That's what firms are doing now versus just living on the tax returns. You guys know that I'm preaching to the choir, but it's sort of who's first to the game right now. And it's getting very, very competitive. So I think it's very important this summer to stand back and look at the direction and the future of your firm and to figure out how to find the time and the resources to update your messaging and update your brand and your vision for where you're going to be 5 years from now, and update your online presence. Interestingly, 81% of people research a product or service online before making a purchase. So they're finding you, they're looking for you. And the other reason that you have to really prioritize the direction is that you have to be able to recruit the right talent for your firm. If you think about recruiting someone in that you want to be there for the duration of your firm, you're going to want to recruit someone in who's an intelligent individual that you can turn from a preparer to a reviewer, or to maybe someone who's just focused on being an outsourced CFO, whatever the case may be for your practice. And then, of course, the other reason you have to find time to prioritize is that you have to kind of figure out what your business development is going to look like for those advisory services. Who's responsible for that? How is it going to get done? How do you create a sales funnel, a prospecting strategy, et cetera? So I wanted to kind of tee this up for Dan because there are so many things that I realize firms have to be thinking about, not only during the summer and the off season, but frankly, during tax season too, when your best captive prospects are right there at your fingertips in front of you. They're your captive audience. Dan's done a really good job of that. So I asked him to share his why and then how he actually created a schedule and stuck with it and executed it. So with that, Dan, I will let you talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Janelle. It's interesting because this point that you made about making time to prioritize the direction and the future of our firm, that couldn't be more truer than it is right now. I mean, when you talk about all the opportunities, the pandemic that we just went through and hopefully that we're coming out of, it's crazy to admit that obviously as a CPA, CFO of TaxExact, but then a CPA and final reviewer for our accounting firm, we decided to launch a valuation practice in the middle of tax season. I think we filed with the state on February 21st and we hit the ground running. And that's all because we set clear expectations for not only ourselves, but the firm and the direction of where we want it to go. So did you put the 4 o'clock on here? I don't see it on here.
I did not. No, but you can go ahead and tell them. So one thing that was really, not to cut you off, Dan, but one thing that like I about fell out of my chair when Dan was like, yeah, I you know what? I'm done every day by 4:30. I don't work weekends. And I said, that's amazing to me. We need to talk about that because I'm from the Midwest, and almost every firm that I've worked with had mandatory Saturdays during tax season, and overtime was just a given. There was a certain expectation of a certain number of hours a week. So I think what you have created and how you've been able to stick with it has been really quite amazing. If you would talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I always challenge the status quo. When I get into public accounting, they're like, hey, we do Saturdays. I was like, well, not me. I've got too many other things going on. And I do. So I have 4 kids at home. And I promised my wife, even during tax season, I would be home 4:30 every single day. And just about every single day, I managed to hit that. So my day does typically start around 6 a.m. I kind of break down a little bit how my schedule works. 6 to 9 a.m. I spend using TaxExact, reviewing those complicated returns we talked about. That's the only thing I do from 6 to 9. I shut off my email. I shut off any distraction. From 9 to 11, the staff usually start showing up. So I have very scheduled regiment staff meetings. We have administrative work done during that time. Once 11 o'clock hits, we roll into advisory meetings. So I just mentioned we launched a valuation firm. We have had incredible success just since February launching that firm. And it's really because of the direction that we wanted to go. So we also do a lot of outsourced CFO work. So we can't stop that advisory and consulting services as soon as tax season starts, right? We're not doing that only 8 months out of the year. We need to do that 12 months out of the year. And the only way we're going to make that happen is by planning, right? And planning for that time. So 11 to 2 is for outsourced CFO meetings, advisory meetings, valuation meetings. And then from 2 to 4, I make delivery phone calls. So the pandemic has really shaped how we make delivery phone calls now. We talked a little bit about how our review process works, right? The tax preparer prepares a return. Depending on the level and complexity of it, either they're going to do the TaxExact instance or we are. And then it's a phone call to the client, letting them know, what happened in the tax return, whether they owe, whether they're getting a refund. Talk about some advisory opportunities. And like Janelle and I talked about earlier today, it doesn't mean hitting those advisory opportunities and delivering on those today. It could mean setting an appointment, come May, come June, come July, to have another conversation to actually deliver on those advisory opportunities. Thanks for talking about, I sent a note just a minute ago on TaxExact to Janelle on that return that we approved saying, hey, I think there's an opportunity that we can talk about moving their rental property into an LLC, right? That doesn't have to be done today, but let's get that on the schedule. And if you were to look at my calendar now, you'll see appointments from when we set a few months ago of just setting that stage of, hey, on this day and this month, we're going to talk about these opportunities. So really, that's how my schedule ends. 4 o'clock, 4:30, I'm home, I'm hanging out with the kids. They're my why. I don't live to work, right? I don't work to live. I have my why. It's why I come in, I do what I do. And I know that if I want to get done what I want to get done, I have to plan. I don't let the day control me. I control my day.
And to be fair, like you said, there are certain weekends where you might have to pop in for 30 minutes, but by and large, you control your schedule during tax season and it works. And I think too, you would probably agree that, TaxExact has been a helpful component of being able to be more efficient as a reviewer because there's no bottleneck in the firm that you work at.
It's a game changer. When you talk about ticking and tying, when you talk about somebody who's new to the industry, when you give them TaxExact, you give them an end goal. That end goal has to be matching that tax return to that TaxExact instance. You know what you're getting into. There is no guessing. There's no where do I start. You start at the top and you finish at the bottom. It's very clear instructions. I will say, so when we're looking at the calendar, May 15th, Saturday, right? The Saturday before the deadline, I worked 20 minutes. I had 2 phone calls, people who called me who needed help. 20 minutes is the amount of time I logged on this Saturday before the deadline.
Impressive. That's impressive. Awesome. Well, before we end this, I wanted to just make a couple of closing comments. Thank you so much, Dan. I wanted to show everyone that it is possible. It's not just Dan that does this. There are a lot of CPAs who I love this shift of seeing that people can actually go and control tax season versus allowing it to control us, right? So it's not just Dan, and I wanted to give you guys that example, but what we're really passionate about is being able to empower your humans and your firm with technology and with best practices in order to help you guys tap into the critical thinking of your preparers and turn them into reviewers quicker. Because at the end of the day, we believe that it's hard to find reviewers out there, other than, trying to find them in other firms locally. It's next to impossible because the market is very, very small right now. But I also believe that if you can take a preparer straight out of college and turn them into a reviewer here at the end of a tax season, you can do that with any preparer. So, trying to find preparers, they might just really be under your fingertips already. So what I will also show you as we close up here is, let's see, there we go. One more thing. So if you would like to see a far more detailed demo of TaxExact, you can do that. You can simply go to our website and click on request a demo up at it's the top right of the screen. It's a couple of places on the website, and we'll get in touch with you to get that scheduled. There are free trials available. There are firms that like to just kind of play with it a little bit, and that is available for qualified firms. But we would be more than happy to take you through a more detailed demo if you would like, or answer any questions that you've got. You can certainly email me directly, or you can email Dan, Janelle, or Dan at taxexact.com if you think of any questions specifically, or if you forget that, you can also email support@taxexact.com or sales@taxexact.com. Happy to answer any questions you've got, even if it's just a best practice around setting up your review process given the specifics of your firm. But with that, I think that is pretty much everything that we've got for today. Emily, I will do one last check and see if there are any questions. Let's see here. Okay. I think we are good to go.
Good to go. Thank you guys so much. Great presentation. Everyone, thank you for joining us. You will get an email with the webinar recording and the presentation as a PDF here in a little bit. I think other than that, well, we just hope to see you at the next Insightful Accountant webinar. You can also find at insightfulaccountant.com our education hub, so you can stay up to date with our live events, training courses, and free educational webinars. Thank you all again so much, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you.